Welcome back to Strong Inside and Out. I'm Ashley Katzenback, and this show is built on one idea. Education is the intervention. The more you understand about your body, or your athlete's body, the fewer surprises you have to deal with down the road. Today's topic is one that flies almost completely under the radar until it becomes a real problem. REDS, or Relative Energy Deficiency in Sport. If you're a parent, a coach, or an athlete yourself, there's a good chance you've never heard the term, and an even better chance you've seen the symptoms without knowing what you were looking at. My guest today is Laura Reece. She's the Director of Sports Nutrition at WHSP Medical, Women's Health, Sports and Performance. A board-certified specialist in sports oh my gosh, this word? Sports...
Dietetics.
Dietetics. Thank you, Laura. And the founder of her own private practice, which she built and ran successfully for a decade. She's a consulting dietitian for the Boston Ballet Company. She has sat on the USOPC REDS Expert Advisory Panel, and she's presented nationally and internationally on sports performance, nutrition, REDS, and the treatment of eating disorders in athletes. On a more personal level, she has helped me and my family immensely. So I'm so happy to welcome Laura to the show. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a mouthful. There's a lot of titles, a lot of big letters and words after your name, and I love all of them.
Yes, and they some of them, took years to get and have to be recertified. And so we're always keeping current on our knowledge, which I think is a really important thing to point out with a registered dietitian. So we can talk more about that today.
Yes, you just keep learning. There's no stopping you.
Correct.
So before we get into REDS itself, I want people to understand who they're listening to. So if you can give us a quick version of the journey, your journey. You began your career at Boston Children's in the female athlete program and then went on to build your own private practice. And now you are the director of sports nutrition at WHSP, which I've had the pleasure of visiting, and it is stunning. What is the thread that connects all of those to where you are now at WHSP?
Sure. And there's actually a chapter before that chapter.
Ooh.
So I don't know if you even know this is, a hot take here, some new info. So I moved to Boston from New York City almost 13 years ago now to work in that chapter that you mentioned at Boston Children's Hospital, and really helped to build up the female athlete program there under Dr. Kate Ackerman, who is, I will say, the thread. So I'm going to hold that for 1 minute. Yes, and share the background. But I worked in eating disorder specific outpatient practice in New York City. And I went to graduate school in New York at NYU to become a dietitian and did my internship there. But I was in finance before that, which is really a fact for a lot of people. It's my former life. It's like my formerly known as Laura in finance.
Okay.
So this is a career change for me. So I guess there's like 2 chapters before it, right?
This is definitely a hot take. I like it.
It's a hot take. Now you're in the know.
Okay.
But yeah, so I moved here. I actually met Dr. Ackerman at a conference. There was an eating disorder in sport conference. There weren't a tremendous amount of clinicians in this space at that point in time. And Dr. Ackerman was really starting to pave the way for female athletes and really speaking about her observations as an elite rower, seeing a lot of her teammates losing their menstrual cycles. And, she was seeing this pattern, this theme, and decided that she was going to spend her career, helping athletes and female athletes. That was one of the things, right? There's many things. But basically, that specialty of overlapping with the medical piece and this idea of this interdisciplinary care of individuals that all treat athletes, whether you're a registered dietitian like me, a sports psychologist, and physician, really all working together. So at Children's, we definitely had that model. And fast forward, we received private funding from some incredible donors, Dave and Jean Ott. And that's when we started WHSP Medical, and WHSP Institute is on I always say it's the other side of the the suite here, and that is our not-for-profit research organization, which is all dedicated to research in female athletes throughout the lifespan, because the amount of research done in females is very, very low. It's almost all based on males, and many elite males, which is totally applicable to the population. We're all, male cyclists in the Tour de France. Or the women's tour, right?
Yes.
That's coming. But yeah, so basically coming here was to have us all under one roof, and we're able to do a bit more, and there's more freedom in a lot of senses in this outpatient setting, and a lot are coming up. So stay tuned. But I'm excited to be part of this new journey, but that's a very long answer. But
no, it's a great answer. And you brought up a few interesting points just about females and research, and I'm going to probably get this statistic wrong, but women weren't included in research until the 80s. Is that right? In medical research?
I believe that is correct. I believe.
Okay.
I will not say it's in stone, but that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we have a lot of catching up to do. And when I visited WHSP for the opening event, I was so impressed by the data that's being collected to kind of catch us up in competitive sports and athletes that just want to compete forever. Whenever I am, not even compete, just be an athlete. Just be an athlete forever.
Yeah.
I think that females, or I guess all athletes, right, have an identity crisis sometimes when you stop playing that sport. It's like, what do I do now? But you can still be an athlete. We just have to change the language.
Absolutely. And I think women, men as well, but women are definitely wanting to stay competitive too. For some women, it is still competing. I have plenty of master's level athletes. I feel like I'm a master's level athlete myself, and I'm wanting to still see myself PR and, in the marathon, and, how much faster can I get, and what does that look like? And I love that energy, is around. But yeah, it's a different journey for different people, whether it is staying active, maybe not being, competitive or running marathons, but, being able to be active with your grandchildren or your children. So it's exciting. I just think it's exciting time to be working in women's health and women's sports.
Yes. Just to circle back to one thing, because I think you sugarcoated it a little bit or glazed over it. Boston qualifier. So Laura, you are a Boston qualifier. How many times have you run Boston?
I've run it twice, qualified 3 times.
Okay. It's kind of a big deal.
Lost one with COVID and pregnancy. So.
Okay, but that's a big deal. And just so that we can really just put a real pin on it, what is a qualifying time? What was your qualifying time for Boston?
So my first one was a 3:32. And then it's down. I cannot break the 3:30. It is my focus to break it. I didn't qualify by 10 minutes or 20 minutes.
Yeah. You qualified.
But I had enough of a cushion to qualify. And, but I feel like I've just really started scratching the surface, with what I want to do. And I feel like where I want to see where I can go with it, and trying some new things. I'm training for my first full marathon postpartum. And my children are 6 and just about 4.
Okay.
And, we could do a whole other podcast right on returning and postpartum. But this is, my youngest is turning 4, and this is the first marathon I'm training for coming back. It's been a journey. And it's still a journey, right? You helped me too, Ashley. We have, I'm not just a guest here. I've worked with you too. And, it takes a village, but
I think I'm really excited for you. And for those of you that don't know, a 3:30 is an 8-minute mile, right, Laura?
It's about,
No, less than an 8-minute mile.
Yeah. It's 7. So I don't even know anymore. That's how long it's been since.
It's fast. It's fast. It's faster. Yeah. Anyway.
Hopefully getting faster.
Yes. Okay. Well, this is very good. I've digressed, but it's very exciting. So I think to circle back on to WHSP, right? What is WHSP? And what does your role as the director look like? And what is your day look like? Because I think you wear a lot of hats.
I do. I do. That is a specialty of many registered dietitians. So WISP, as I mentioned before, WISP Medical is where I am an employee. So WISP Medical is our medical clinic. So that is where we see our patients. That is where we have our physicians, athletic trainer, clinical sports psychology, and I have a team of dietitians with me as well. So it is interdisciplinary and PAs. Can't forget our amazing PAs here. But that is where we are treating our patients. So just to explain the other half again, I mentioned we have the WISP Institute, which is the not-for-profit side of WISP, and it is a separate entity, but it is dedicated to research. And the nice thing is the kind of the interplay between the two organizations. I spend most of my time in clinical. So as a medical employee, I'm seeing patients, and I'll give you a snippet of my day, but what we always say is that clinic informs research and research informs clinic. And I think that's the real beauty of WISP, is that hopefully, we're able to get answers. We're able to start, giving out some more evidence-based information. Obviously, it'll take some time, but the whole idea behind WISP Medical too was to really be able to have athletes come to one place. Often our patients have gone to 5, 10 more. I've heard everything. Physicians, dietitians, mental health, for all these different things that are going on. But we really provide one location. You walk through one door. And when we first opened, it was like 50% of our patients are seeing more than one provider when they come. And I would say that's even higher now. But the interdisciplinary care and sitting around, we don't sit around at all. Actually, we are a startup. There's very little sitting. But the collaboration is amazing. And we also have like a DEXA, we have phlebotomy here, X-ray. So things happen, like you don't have to send someone out for a DEXA to have it done in 2 months. So I see patients a lot. I will say that is, that is how I'm spending most of my days. I'm seeing, also part of my day twice a week is I do supervision for my other clinicians. So those that are in the dietetics field or mental health field, it's a common part of our work where we sit down with other clinicians and we really talk through cases and we're guiding them. So it's a way of really passing along knowledge and skills and helping them develop clinical judgment and know how to work with these cases, which can be really, really tricky. There's a lot of moving parts. So I have trained both of my dietitians that are here. And that's what I did in my private practice, was really train, teach, educate, which I love.
And you're very good at it.
Yeah.
I might say very good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
I use that with my patients as well. I'm really big on education. So teaching them things instead of just handing over information, but really helping them understand the whys, which I really think helps connect people to the work and their own goals and motivations. So that's a part of it. And then I'm just always working on what else can we do? There's a lot of program development happening now and a lot of ideas. I feel like an idea notebook. So that's how I'm spending some of my other time, and a lot of outreach and things like we're doing here, which is, podcasts and things like that.
It is so exciting when the ideas, they just flow. They just flow all the time. Like, you must just keep a notepad next to your bed, wherever you are, and just continue to write them down. It's really exciting. And seeing WHSP, Women's Health, Sport, and Performance, it just seems like it's something out of a dream world. Like, to walk in there and see that all of this can exist in one place. As a female in perimenopause, to see that I could go there, have a bone density, have an ultrasound, have my blood drawn, collaborate with an endocrinologist, collaborate with a physiatrist, a nutritionist, a mental health psychiatrist. It's just the stuff of dreams. And so when I send patients there, I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's all there. It's all right there together. Like, you can go. Yeah. They're like, but it's in Boston. Yeah, but it's all one place and it's beautiful. when I went, I was like,
it is beautiful.
I would like to work here. I would like to work there someday.
Yeah.
In a different lifetime, I would like to be there. So I'm so happy.
The gym, we have the gym here too, which is a part of the institute, which helps me get my strength training in, which is very important.
Good.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So the last podcast I did, I was interviewing some college female athletes, and we talked a little bit about RED-S, and it really is a topic that piqued a lot of interest. So I'm so happy that you are our next guest, because there were so many follow-up questions, and I definitely did not feel equipped to answer them. So what is RED-S?
Yep. So RED-S, as you mentioned before, but I will state it again, is relative energy deficiency in sport. And it's a syndrome of an impairment of different psychological or I should say, physiological consequences that are experienced by an athlete caused by an energy deficit, or low energy availability. So what does that mean? To boil it down, it means that an athlete is expending more energy than they are taking in. And it's interesting because I've had people say, well, is that one day? Is that 2 days? So low energy availability really can exist on a continuum. And it is something that you will see the longer someone sits in an energy deficit, we typically see more physiological, psychological symptoms that are starting to appear. So it is a longer term, right? The range, the length of the low energy availability will and can impact the effect of it, or can magnify the impacts on the body, on the brain. So that is it's hard to stop. I feel like I could do a master class on it, right?
I would love it. I would love a master class on it from you.
Yeah.
And a lot of coaches and parents, and even myself, it's taken me a while to change the way I speak about this. I used to call it the female athlete triad, but so it's essentially, is it the same thing, or it's the same thing but more?
Good question. So it's not that it evolved into RED-S from female athlete triad. So the female athlete triad it is another group of individuals. It is what really, it was groundbreaking when the female athlete triad was first introduced, which for those that are not aware of it, right, it was underfueling, hormone, or actually menstrual cycle impact, and low bone density. So it just really looked at those three pieces and how they were interconnected, which was really important to know about. But what we started seeing, and what was being seen by physicians, by clinicians, was that, number one, this doesn't just affect women. So males, that is a key point here too for our male listeners or parents of, males and females, that this is not just for women. So RED-S can impact males as well as females, any gender. Actually, I think that's an important point to make. So any gender, and I've seen all genders struggling with RED-S. So I think that that's one key point to remember. And I think that the other point that I was going to make was that there are other symptoms besides just the negative impact on hormone levels and menstrual functioning and bone health. We are learning more about all these different systems in the body that can be impacted. And for those that have seen the RED-S models, right, there are two circles. One of the circles highlights all the potential physiological consequences of having RED-S. So that will include bone health, right? That low bone density. And a lot of times we have athletes coming in with bone stress injuries. That's a really common reason someone might come in, and someone's risk is higher for bone stress injury with RED-S. But there's also things such as GI dysregulation, right? So constipation or diarrhea, or just some funky stuff going on, right? That can actually be a sign of low energy availability. Because if you think of it this way, I always like to explain it to my patients as your body isn't an iPhone. Okay. This sounds very weird, but think about you leave the house in the morning and you get that message that pops up that says low power mode. And you can put your phone in low power mode, right? And what does that do? It's going to save your battery. It's going to kind of dim things. It's going to shut some apps down. You see where I'm going with my analogy, probably, right?
Yes.
So your body's kind of doing something similar. It's slowing your resting metabolic rate. So that is a side effect, right? That can be one of the things we see with REDS, which slows digestion, which is going to cause impair recovery, cause the need for increased time, less of a response to your training. You're training a lot and your body is getting weaker, not stronger. In some people, it's actually weight gain because the metabolism slows and we can actually see people gain weight. So people, I think a misconception is that you have to be underweight or have lost weight to have REDS, which is not the case. But there are, again, and I don't know if you do like a show note or something where you could put, we could put the model in there because it does affect so many different systems and we're still learning about more. And even the mind, right? Anxiety and depression are things that we can see correlated with low energy availability as well.
Are those in one of the circles, the anxiety?
They are. Yeah. I mean, even there's more. Sleep. Urinary incontinence has been a newer one that was added in the most recent iteration. The one that focuses on physiological side effects, I always say, spoiler alert, it's most systems in the body. Hematological too, right? Low iron. REDS is an inflammatory state. So if your body is inflamed, it's also can impair your body's ability to absorb iron. Another reason a lot of people come in, low iron, very common in athletes, particularly female athletes. So if your body is inflamed, levels of hepcidin in the body actually impair the body's ability to absorb iron. So an athlete might be supplementing, but the levels aren't improving. And sometimes that can be something else too. REDS is also a diagnosis of exclusion. So there are other things that can cause, amenorrhea, or missed periods, or low testosterone in males, or constipation, or, low iron. So that's also a key thing to mention. There's more, but
I will definitely put up the picture because I do think the visual is very helpful.
Yes.
And that's an interesting, you just mentioned about low iron.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of times people will say, well, do I just have low iron because I have a heavy period? This seems to be like a common, maybe misconception.
And that can be a cause, right? Especially like there's been more research on the opposite side of amenorrhea, more in, heavy menstrual bleeding. So female athletes that are struggling more with that aspect. And it can contribute to low iron, but there's other contributing factors. With anyone that is also a vegan or a vegetarian or more, plant-based or plant-forward, these are more terms that we're hearing now as well. Iron is in vegan, protein sources and vegetarian ones, but it's what we call less bioavailable. So it needs to be paired with a vitamin C is one way to increase the bioavailability. Cooking in cast iron skillets, you can get a little bit of iron as well, but that's another way. So you will see it typically higher rates of low iron in female vegetarian and vegan and endurance athletes too.
Mm-hmm.
So you lose iron with sweating. You also can lose iron with what's called foot strike hemolysis, which is a pounding of your feet on the ground, and common in runners. And you get a lysis, or a breaking down, a death, if you will, of red blood cells. So those are all more reasons. Iron deficiency is very common in athletes, especially endurance athletes and females.
I am going to have to, you are teaching me a lot of things right now, and I'm going to have to do a little bit more homework. This is great. This is just questions, just cause more questions, but it's wonderful.
Yeah. That's the whole point, right?
Yes.
That's how we get the information.
Yes. So if I'm a coach and I'm watching practice every day, like we'll pretend that I am not, know nothing about this.
Yeah. Yep.
Are there things that I would notice, could notice? Are there things that the coaches of high school athletes, college athletes, youth athletes could and should be looking for?
Absolutely. And actually, interesting question, because a lot of times what we see with REDS, people sometimes have a slight performance increase when they start struggling with REDS. And a lot of times that plays into that like lighter is faster, which is a myth, excuse me. We say fueled is faster, right? I've been saying that one for years. So sometimes a runner will, restrict their calories or under fuel purposely or not purposely, or intentionally or not intentionally, and they might lose weight from that. Perhaps not everyone does, and feel like my performance is amazing. I'm lighter, I'm faster. But we always say there will be a falling off the cliff moment. Some people, pun intended, can outrun REDS for years. I have had women and men in their late 20s or 30s come in that have run at D1 schools, that have run, some of them have started professional careers. And then it happens. We start seeing bone stress injuries, and a lot of like sacral stress injuries or, femoral neck. A lot of these are the types of stress injuries that we see, or there's often usually low bone density if someone has been struggling, depending on the length of time, right? Especially in those bone building adolescent years, primarily those teenage years. So a performance decrease can be a sign, but it is oftentimes you'll see a peak with some athletes before a drop. Okay. So had to mention that because we see that a lot. But I would say, yeah, definitely less of a response to training, athletes being really fatigued, not recovering well from workouts, or even like an attitude, noticing that someone is basically like, maybe they were someone who was kind of, I hate to use the word happy. It feels so simple, but like you notice a change in demeanor, right? And that could be that like anxiety or depression symptoms sort of increasing, or a loss of interest. That's another one. Not wanting to participate anymore, not wanting to show up for practice. So noticing a personality change. It could be a weight change. It could be a sudden weight loss, or even sometimes a sudden weight gain. It can actually go either direction. And bone stress injuries, they're not, again, REDS is diagnosis of exclusion, so they're not the only cause. But if someone's getting stress fractures, or they've had multiple ones, or they're getting sick or injured more than their teammates, that's also a classic sign.
It does seem,
or potential sign of REDS.
Yeah, it seems like the injuries that may be slower to heal than they used to be, or just feeling unwell more than you have. The things that I have seen and turned out to be the case. But that's great.
Yep.
Because I know everyone wants to know about this. They're just not sure, what am I looking for and how do I help?
Totally.
Okay, so is any of this, I think this is a misconception as well, but I'll let you tell me.
Sure.
Is it because we are eating less food, or is it because the timing around training is the issue? Like people hear about REDS and I mistakenly just thought it was about undereating. I didn't realize how much more was involved. But so is it that you're eating less, or is it that you're not eating at the right time, or both?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, both. I will say both, or either or, if you will. Less food, certainly, right? If an athlete is no longer meeting their needs, there is a formula, which is or I will say like 45 kilocalories per kilogram of fat-free mass. So you don't have to write that down, everyone, listeners, right? This is something that the professionals will figure out, but we are looking for a certain amount of calories that someone is intaking, normalized to their fat-free mass in their body. But what does that mean for everyone who's not doing those calculations that I'm doing here? Yeah, if someone is not taking in enough overall calories, 100%, or they decrease their intake, or training increases and then your food stays the same or decreases. So one of the things I ask all of my athletes typically in an eval is like, what does your eating look like throughout the year? Does it change? Like, does it change in season or out of season? And I can't tell you the number of times people say, no, it's usually always about the same. And that is a gigantic waving red flag to me, because it should increase as volume is increasing, and particularly in the form of carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. So I could literally talk for days about carbohydrates. I could, but I won't in the interest of time. But if you ever want me to come back and do a carb episode, you know where to find me.
I would love to talk to you about carbohydrates. I don't know why that they have been, put in exile, but I would love to bring them back, and you can help us bring them back. Yeah. So
I will.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, so, absolutely.
In your experience, and I know you have a lot of this, what actually will get through to a skeptical athlete or a skeptical parent about talking about, like, when could this hurt your long-term health? I mean, does that land? Like, I'm just picturing talking to my teenagers and saying, this is going to affect your long-term health, and they're going to roll their eyes at me and they're never going to listen.
Yes.
So how do you get the message across about kind of how serious this is and how it's going to have lifelong ramifications?
You already answered half my question, which I love, because yes, long-term health consequences, most athletes that are teen or even younger in their collegiate careers or professional careers, it's not really a focus, right? If I'm going to have osteoporosis when I'm, 50 or 60, but some of these athletes, we see osteoporosis when they're in their 20s. So can hit a lot sooner for some, but I digress. I will say the two REDS models. So we talked a lot about the model that talks about more physiological side effects, but there is actually a second wheel or circle, if you will, that talks all about the performance consequences. That is where my athletes really dial in, right? It is really in looking at how is this going to affect my performance, right? And I think it's harder when you have an athlete come in that says, I'm performing great. I don't know why I'm here, right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter that I don't have my period. I'm crushing it. Look at these times. And this happens all the time. And I know the conversation I'm gearing up for, right? And it is, I think what's been helpful there is also a lot of the more like Olympic elite professional athletes that have come out and spoken about the fact that under fueling, like they might have been faster in their careers, or they're dealing with injuries now, or they feel like it had a negative impact on their careers back when they were training, that they weren't fueling enough, or they weren't recovering as well, or like, what could I have done if, imagine what I could have done. I had an elite athlete. It was actually a figure skater, former Olympic figure skater, that I met at like an event and said to her, like, I'm a dietitian. She said, God, and she went very far. Like most people on the call would know her. And, she said, if I can only imagine if like my nutrition actually looked better, if my career would have continued longer, what it would have looked like. So that might hit some people, but I think I do warn people of the falling off the cliff moment. You might feel well now, but we see this all the time. I don't want you to get a bone stress injury and miss your whole season when we could have worked on preventing that. Amenorrheic athletes, so female athletes not menstruating for at least 3 periods in a row, are 8 times more likely to develop bone stress injuries. So I will drop some stats on people too, but I go through a lot of those performance consequences. And like, do you really want to be sitting on that ticking time bomb? So those are some of the strategies that I use to sort of like, I don't want to scare people, but I do want to give them education.
I think scare them. I'm here. I want you to scare them.
Sometimes I definitely do. And I can see people looking a little scared, but I also tell them, hey, I have someone, I work with that is an elite marathon runner, but hasn't been able to compete and missed an opportunity to go pro because of a non-healing injury, because things weren't dealt with. And there's that cases. I don't just have one of those. I have many of those cases. So I think that it is also finding in my work, I'm always looking for the proverbial carrot, if you will. No, not the literal carrot, right? But what is someone hooking onto? What's really important to someone? Have I worked with an athlete in their sport that I can add like an anecdotal thing? So that's where the counseling really comes in, and where that's really important in the work and in the Reds work. It is that the art of counseling. And some people might not want to listen to you. And guess what? They're probably going to come back when they fall off the cliff. I've seen it many times, and I thank them for coming in, and I give them a lot of credit for coming back, because it's hard to admit when you're wrong.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but there seems like there's more of like this skinny culture coming back in social media.
Yep.
And, I think about growing up in some of the Jane Fonda aerobics, these leotards, like, some of these things that were imprinted in my brain as a young age. And now I'm thinking about my kids and what's out there for them to see too. And how do you kind of like reframe this conversation, or how do you change the narrative when they've already seen it a million times, and, we're all drinking Diet Cokes and energy drinks, and we're not eating, and carbs. I mean, who would think that kids are thinking carbs aren't great for them? But it does. Yep. It's like a full protein and vegetable meal now.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's one of the biggest things, like everyone's talking about protein, right? And social media, it's all over social media, to the point where a lot of athletes are not getting enough carbohydrate, right? Which is a major reason I see people, because they're very fatigued, right? Mm-hmm. It's usually because they don't have enough carbs. But I just had a conversation with one of my teenage athletes about this literally this morning, because I name it. I name social media. I mean, I have even gotten to the point where I will, like, if someone's comfortable, we will look at their like landing page on Instagram, right? I asked if that was still like, the cool thing that all the kids are using. So I was like, I'll admit, I need to ask these questions now. I am in my 40s and I am not 17, nor should I try to be. But it actually helps me also understand, like, well, what are you seeing? Mm-hmm. What are the messages that you're getting? But social media is out. It's targeting you, right? And it's targeting these teenagers and college athletes. We could go down a whole rabbit hole with like, NIL now as well, and how that's affecting things. But I name it and I talk about it, and I'm like, well, what are you seeing? What's going on at your school? What's the vibe on your team, right? Like, athletes are strong, athletes are powerful, right? Like, that fueled is faster. I will talk to them about Reds. I will talk to them about helping them achieve optimal strength and power in their body, because you're the most powerful when you're maximizing what your body can do, not what, Sally, who's on Instagram, and who's the same height as you. Our bodies are all different, and you're going to be at your strongest and most powerful when you are maximizing what you've got.
That's amazing. I love that. I feel like I can use that. And I love what you're saying. Just let's name it. Let's talk about it. What are you seeing?
Name it.
That's a great
talk about it. Yep. I do that a lot in my sessions. I like to put it all out there.
So, and let's talk a little bit about the Boston Ballet. It's definitely it's a dance is a sport. It's an extreme sport.
Absolutely.
How does it compare when something like ballet or dance or gymnastics, when, aesthetically the model is trying to be kind of long and lean and you've got so much skin exposed? I mean, how does that change? Are you seeing a higher percentage of people in that field, or does it just kind of, it's across the board, like Reds isn't all the sports?
Yeah. What we do know, which is research and evidence-based, is that aesthetic sports, which I would say ballet, figure skating, gymnastics is a bit different, because I do think we've seen a shift in actually body types in gymnastics, and no longer, if someone's natural body is longer and leaner, I mean, that is someone's natural body too, right? Some people are, and I don't want to like body shame someone or anyone, right, at all, but sometimes someone's body just is naturally a certain way. But we have seen a shift, I think, in the gymnastics world to like power, strength, like Simone Biles doing things that are like insane. Like, it's just, she's like insane.
I love it.
The athleticism is crazy, but power, right? So I love what that sport kind of like that, there, it's not perfect in that sport either, but like there's been a lot of progress. But I think with dance, you're absolutely right. It is really, really tricky. And this actually gives me the perfect opportunity to talk about an organization that I've become involved with, which is actually called Project Red D, which is, yes, so it is basically relative energy deficiency in dance. And it is an organization based out of the UK, run by amazing and talented Karen Sheriff, who's a physio who used to be at the Royal Ballet School. And it is an amazing organization that is really educating dancers about REDS. And because I think a lot of dancers, often feel like the language and the studies and the way REDS is talked about doesn't feel like it necessarily 100% vibes with their world. So Project Red D has been absolutely amazing. And they have a beautiful website and working on a lot of educational toolkits, but really trying to change that, really old school aesthetic that dancers should be, wafy thin. And I think Misty Copeland has done a lot, and heard the book and, the children's book, and power, strength. Like if you've ever seen Misty dance, she's a powerhouse. She's so strong. And I think that's really the message when I speak to ballet dancers. I say, this is the incredible athleticism that dance requires. I mean, these dancers are dancing 6 to 7 hours a day. It can be absolutely grueling. And I always say to them, and you can't, grunt like a tennis player or, wipe your sweat off and, like you have to look like nothing is uncomfortable at all. And let me tell you, there's discomfort there. But it can't be shown. So I think dancers are a really interesting population that I absolutely adore working with. And I work with a lot of pre-professionals. I've worked with the Boston Ballet School and the Walnut Hill School for the Arts, which houses part of Boston Ballet's pre-professional program, and really trying to get to these dancers at a younger age that fuel is important. They need carbohydrates, why they need it, and really speaking to them through the language, the dance world, really addressing them specifically. But we got a lot of work to do because the ballet aesthetic it's still very much out there, and it's more prevalent in certain companies than others. But
all right, well, keep up the good work.
Another podcast episode.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a lot there too. Sorry, I got on my soapbox. Sorry about that.
No, I love it. Again, I think the fun thing about these podcasts is you just have a conversation and you never know quite what's going to come up and what you're going to reveal, which I love. So if you suspect, or if a parent suspects, the pediatrician or whomever, that there is a REDS diagnosis, what does treatment look like? Like, how do you treat this?
Yeah. So it looks a lot of different ways, right? Because REDS can happen for different reasons. So remember that sort of simple equation is that you're expending more energy than you're taking in. So I think because it can happen for many different reasons, the treatment might look different. And it will look very different if you have an athlete that is struggling with an eating disorder or disordered eating, and they're under fueling as a result of the eating disorder, because I think it all takes an interdisciplinary approach. So I'll talk about that for a moment, because I think some of the first intervention steps, first of all, I think it's great if even primary care doctors are, I know a lot of them do already ask their patients about, for females, ask them about their menstrual cycles, and if they're, taking a birth control pill or have an IUD, because that is not a natural period. And it is not, if you were taking a birth control pill, it doesn't mean you're necessarily getting a true period. It's usually it's a withdrawal bleed, and it does not help with bone density. So taking a birth control pill because you lost your cycle will actually not help build bone density. And every week of my life, I still have patients that are being prescribed birth control pills. But the answer is food. It's correcting the imbalance, right? So basically asking about periods, asking about, you can do a light dietary recall, but you can leave it to the experts to kind of dive deeper. But if an athlete says that they're really, they're tired, a physician could certainly run some labs, or I think, you can refer, like we actually on our WHSP Institute .org website, we do have some educational materials, or a physician, if they wanted to run some of the initial labs, could do it looking at, if you look at the British Journal of Sports Medicine, October 2023 edition, it is all about REDS. And it talks about like the screening tools, because there are tools that you could use even in a clinic. And there's also a scoring system for the intensity of REDS. So remember I said it can take different amounts of time to heal. It's like red, yellow, green, right? Like a traffic light, or orange. There's orange in there. So green, yellow, red, orange. But basically, our physicians usually score athletes when they come in here with where they are. And basically, the more risk factors you have, the more into the red that an athlete goes. And that will probably can take longer. But let's say you're a physician that, you can refer them to us here. That is definitely one thing. But if you have an athlete that you're like, I think something's going on here, but they're feeling a little resistant, and whether that you're a parent or a clinician, what we like to say is see if you can get them in. Are they interested in nutrition? Hey, I wear a hat as a sports dietitian, right? Like sports nutrition is the easy part of my job, Ashley. Let me tell you, like I can do that part of my sleep. Like it is the REDS, it is the disordered eating, it is the behavioral change, it is the understanding the hurdles. I say I'm a track coach. I feel like that because my work is, a lot of people know what they quote should be eating, but like how do you get from point A to point B? What is in the way of that? What are the hurdles? And that's a lot of the deeper work that we're doing, and that they're doing with the psychologist as well. So are they willing to go talk to a dietitian? Or if someone has low iron, if a doctor runs a panel and there's low iron, which there often is, even if it's not really, really low, if you say to an athlete, hey, would you want to talk to a sports dietitian about like just your fueling and making sure that you're timing things right? That's often a carrot to get people in. Or sports psychologists, like not all sports psychologists, clinical sports psychologists. That's what Dr. Mady Barron, our director of mental health, is here. She's someone who's a clinically trained psychologist, but also again went through, in her graduate degree. Again, clinical psychology basis, but also sports psychology. So you could say, oh, do you want to go talk to someone about your pre-game or pre-performance anxiety? Or so like, you see what I'm saying? Like if there's no injury, but you're like, how do I get them through the door? Usually nutrition or sports psychology can be a really good and then we'll take care of the rest.
Absolutely. When I'm talking to some of my athletes, I say, did you know that their sports psychologist worked with the Northwestern women's lacrosse team? And then they're like, oh, okay. And that's the carrot I usually dangle, because I was like, who doesn't want to talk to her? It sounds amazing.
Exactly. Like I'm not afraid to tell people that, like, yes, I work with Olympians. I work with professionals. I also work with like recreational athletes, plenty of them, right? The percentage, think of how many elite athletes are in the world and on Team USA. Like, so no, I'm not seeing my whole day of elite athletes, but I absolutely have seen some very high level, very well-known people, but I think that helps with buy-in too. I've had parents use that. Laura works with Team USA. Like she helps, fuel. I don't work as a dietitian for them, but as we mentioned, I help consult on, this REDS group, and it's eating disorder as well. So
I love it.
That works too.
I love it.
Plug the performance piece though hard, right?
Yes. So, I know as in my world, I just want to send everyone to WHSP because I know exactly what they're going to get, right? But if those there, and we have to put like so much in the show notes. There is so much information to get.
Yeah, I can help you with that.
That's okay. So is it for parents, for coaches, is there a better way to ask, are you eating enough, to an athlete? I feel like I'm constantly asking that question. Did you fuel enough today? And I need a better way to ask that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, right. It's like, it is all in the phrasing, right? I mean, if you're noticing, I would actually ask, like, if you have an observation, like if you're noticing that you want to ask that question, like, I love asking the why in my mind, like behind the question, like, why am I asking this question? Or why did that patient ask me that question? Right. So I kind of do that a lot in my work, but is it because they're looking really tired? They're constantly like getting gas before the end of a game or practice, right? If someone's legs are feeling totally depleted, I had a college hockey player who said by the third period, and played for one of the top teams, and we went through a diet, and I was like, you barely have any carbs. Like, that's why you've got nothing in the third period, or forget overtime. So basically, I think, why are you asking the question? So then you can say, hey, like, I noticed, like, you came out really strong today, but then like by the second half, it seemed like you were holding back a little bit, or like, kind of choosing your words there. It seemed like you didn't have your usual like fire out there, your kick. You could say, oh, are you fueling like, are you having like even like a pre-workout fueling, or, just making sure like, or hydrating. But I think you can sort of like lead them in. And if someone gets really defensive, that can also be a bit of a red flag too. Because if you're trying to hide something, you don't want someone to ask you about it, right? So I would say another thing you can do, if you're growing concerned, you're noticing personality changes, you're noticing performance changes, someone looks really pale, like anything's like, you can always, if you are like their trusted person, if you have a good relationship with them, or if you have a really good, like, athletic trainers are amazing. They're like our best friends. You can have someone say like, hey, I just want to check in with you. I'm noticing this. I'm a little worried. Like, just want to see how things were going. And even if they don't come out that day and say it, you've planted a seed. This person sees me. I'm being validated that something is being noticed. And that will open the door, hopefully, for them to either come back to you or go to a parent or a friend, but it can open the door.
I think that is a really great way to kind of wrap things up today. I mean, so much information, but I love that takeaway message that we can say to parents, to coaches, to ourselves. That's a really good way to rephrase things. I'm going to definitely change the way I am asking, be a little less blunt and direct.
So, there's a time and a place. I'm blunt and direct too sometimes.
So you mentioned the website is a .org. What is the actual website of where people can find you?
So we have two different ones. Again, two separate institutions, two websites. So for our research institute, it is WHSP, so Women's Health Sport Performance, WHSPinstitute.org.
Okay.
And then if you want to see the medical practice website and, find out how to get in touch with us and schedule an appointment, it is WHSPmedical.com. So not a .org, we are a .com.
Okay.
So that's a key difference. And I also want to mention too, I think it's important that we take insurance. I think a lot of people think we don't, but all of our clinicians here do. We do have cash rates as well if you do not have insurance coverage. So we try to, hopefully get as many people as we can in, but I wanted to mention that. And we see men, FYI.
I have sent several men there. I've sent plenty of women. I've sent myself. I love it. And
all genders. That's again, we see transgender. Everyone's welcome.
It's wonderful. So, Laura, thank you so much for being here and for the work you're doing for young athletes. I'm so happy that we can have this conversation today. And I know it may have created more questions than answers, but I love all the questions.
I'll come back.
Yes. So to our listeners, if this episode hit home for you or for someone you coach or parent, please share it with them. That's how this information actually moves. I'm Ashley Katzenback, and this has been Strong Inside and Out.